I actually wonder, Lee, if you're on a laptop, if you could do the screen share component.
Yes, it will just be one moment. And my name is Lee. Hello. Just wanted to say that my name is Lee. Becky and I and another person, we are part of this society. And you guys are too, now that you have come to our first online outdoors club meeting. We've done other online experiences, but never within an outdoors club. So thank you so much for taking your time out of your evening. And I'm grateful to share some enthusiasm with plants and you guys. So I'll just be one moment while I do some pulling up of a PowerPoint.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us. It's a mystery a little bit about Brian and Linda and Madeline and Noah. Mystery, no Hello. Camera situation. Hello. That's right. Here. I knew I would guilt some folks to doing hi. Jesse, you're there all the time. I see you and your beautiful face. Excellent.
Oh yeah,
hello.
Thank you. I'm in the dark, but I'm here.
Excellent. So I'm actually just curious if my desktop doesn't have a camera, Brian. That's a good reason. If you could see my desktop over here, you would realize it's from 2004 and doesn't do anything, which is why Lee needs to get the presentation up. There's Noah. Hi. Hey. I also have not upgraded my own Zoom skills to change my name in the iPad. And so you can call me Blam, which is what it says, or you can call me Rebecca or Becky if you would like to. And I'm, as Lee said, one of the 3 folks who co-facilitate this little shindig called the Wild Forager Society for the last 8 years. I know Belvina, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, had heard of us and wanted to be involved before. I'm curious if anyone else had heard of or knows what's up with foragers or been on a frolic. There's Linda. Hey. I'm going to take the general silence as a no. No, that's okay. Oh, yes, no. It's okay. As Lee said, you're part of the society now, so thanks for coming on board and online. And Brian picked crab apples. That definitely counts. That's definitely been a thing for us. Oh, Lee, you're amazing. Thank you for being the IT department of the Wild Forager Society.
Oh, yeah.
So I wish that we could be together. First of all, we definitely wish that we could all be outside, that it wasn't pitch black at 7:15 for the last 2 hours, and then we could look at plants in real life. It sounds like you folks have not been able to go on your usual adventures, right? No, none. Anything? Nothing.
We're not allowed to do anything in person. Every single one of our events has to be online.
Ouch. That's rough. And yeah, that's rough. So this is not going to be in person, but we hope it will be inspiring for you to go outside and do your own little bit of frolic or foraging at a very far distance from anyone else, and don't tell your school that you're doing it. So excellent. Lee, can you do the go from beginning?
Yeah, I think so. And if I need this moment, then you'll just have to be all very patient, which you've already been. Wait, do you guys know? How do I do this? View? No, play from start. Ha! I don't use a lot of PowerPoint at my work. I work with children. They don't want to look at screens. Awesome. Cool.
Nobody does. So I'm actually curious, since there's a little bit about us and we're going to talk for the next 45 minutes. Belvina, maybe you know if we should end at 8 still, even though we started a little bit late due to technical difficulties, or do you want to allow for a little bit of extra time?
You guys can take a little bit of extra time for sure, because we did have quite a bit of technical difficulty at the start today. So yeah.
Awesome. That's really great. Thank you so much. I would love to, if folks are available, have audio available then, to actually hear a little bit from the people in the room, if possible. You can introduce yourself. There's so many interesting ways to introduce yourself. So I'm not going to constrict you to saying it has to be your first name and your first pronoun and your favorite job or what you did last night or what you made for dinner. You can tell me, short and sweet, but your intro and an interesting thing that you have noticed this fall outside. Like really interesting. You guys are an outdoors club, so I don't want it to be like, oh, the leaves were red. That's like not enough. I want to hear your most interesting outdoor experience or thing you've spied. And I'm gonna go
I can go first.
Perfect. And Belvina, when you're done, can you
is there
nominate the
Wi-Fi?
next person? Yeah, Belvina first for sure, and then nominate who you want to go second.
Okay, amazing. I think my internet connection is a little unstable, so you cut out there for 2 seconds. But I'm Belvina. I'm in my 5th year of TN at Mac. I'm one of the execs of the club, and one of the most interesting things I've noticed is on my walks that I go on quite a bit because we're stuck inside anyways, is that lots of trees, because of the crazy weather we've been having with it being super cold and then super hot, the leaves are all shriveled up instead of being just a nice typical falling to the ground. I don't know, it's very odd. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't know what it means. I think they're just confused like we all are. I guess I'll nominate Jessie because she's the only person on that I can see right now.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jessie. I'm in my 4th year of music cognition at McMaster, and I'm one of the vice presidents of the club this year. So I'm also on the exec with Belvina. Something interesting that I noticed this fall, and I don't know, maybe I just like haven't seen it before, but for some reason there seemed like there were so many more leaves this year on the ground than normal. Like there were so many. My dad raked, we have a really big backyard, and my dad raked the entire backyard and filled like 9 yard waste bags. And by the next day, we couldn't see the grass again. So there's just like, there's so many leaves where I'm from right now. Sorry, I forgot about the nomination thing. I nominate Maddie.
Hey, so my name is Maddie, and I'm in my 4th year of environmental science at Mac. I'm the environment coordinator for the outdoor club on the exec team. And an interesting thing that I noticed this fall, so I was going on walks and I saw the classic goldenrod and aster, like the purple and yellow flowers together. And I picked them, and there's also some like white flowers there too. So my roommate and I picked them for a little bouquet. And then the white flower and the goldenrod ended up like drying the same way. And I found out that they're actually both goldenrod, even though they look very different. So that was an interesting find for me. And I nominate Noah.
I'm Noah. I'm in my 2nd year of Masters of Biology here at McMaster. I'm also an exec on the outdoor club. I'm the club's president this year and for a few years now. Some things I've noticed. Well, we had a very early frost right at the beginning of the year, which killed off a lot of flower buds. So you might have noticed a lot less fruit and berries on things, on trees especially, but on some other plants as well. And then actually right now, the bees are actually still very active, even though there's no flowers around because of all the frost we've been having. So they're lack of food source. I study bees, if anyone wanted to know. That's why I know that. I'll nominate Hannah.
Are we just introducing ourselves?
Yes, and something you've seen interesting out and about.
I'm Hannah. I'm in my 2nd year of astrophysics, and I'm one of the trip coordinators for the outdoor club. Something interesting that I've noticed. Well, I guess I used to live in Edmonton, and it's like a little bit further north, and the trees are a little different, so we didn't get the same kind of like color change to the leaves. So ever since I moved back to Ontario, I think like I've just been blown away by all the different colors, and that's like my favorite thing. Yeah. Who hasn't gone?
Linda and Brian.
Okay, I nominate Linda.
Okay. My name's Linda, and I'm actually an alumni, so I'm not at MAC anymore. I graduated 2015 from the Medical Radiation Sciences program, and I was a trip leader with Krupesh when he was there. And I kind of just joined this because it was like I'm still in the Facebook group, and I got a notification. So I'm like, that sounds amazing. As for something interesting, like I haven't really been paying attention. Like it was only recently that I started like paying more attention to like the plants that are like in our like urban and like trail areas. So I guess everything is kind of new and interesting to me. So like I've been learning about like the plants that you see on the ground now that I didn't know the names of before, like goldenrods and like asters and like mullein and whatnot. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's cool. Who else wants to go? Who's the last person?
I think it's Brian.
Okay, Brian.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brian. I do stuff at the Outdoor Club. Something that I learned is that there's a lot of crabapple trees, and there's a lot of different types of crabapple trees. There's like 115 or something, and that's pretty crazy. It makes really good jam, by the way.
I can attest to the good jam. It is quite tasty because Brian did give me a jar.
I was always told to not eat crab apples.
Me too.
Raw, but they're good to cook.
Plot twist.
Lee, do you want to go?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I love that truth / like misinformation about crab apples. Oh, don't eat those. They're so good. Jelly. Like actual jelly, not like a slang for jealous. Hey, so my name's Lee. I live in Toronto. I work outside at an outdoor school. And for these reasons, I'm so grateful because I get to see lots of interesting things like the salmon run in the Humber River. So the salmon going upstream and laying their eggs. And today I was appreciating by the Humber River that there's still new catnip and stinging nettle. Like it's the middle of November. It was cool to see it sprouting. So I was appreciating those plants. Yeah.
And I'm Becky or Rebecca, and I sold my soul for a job that pays well in a place called Prince Edward County. So that's my compromise. I'm very jealous of all of you who are doing post-secondary and anything to do with plants or astrophysics. That sounds badass. Because I enjoy plants as a side hustle passion, not for the work like Lee outside. I'm at a computer most days, like a lot of folks. So Wild Foragers Society is a sweet outlet to be able to connect with plants. And I have a 75-acre property today planting a lot of garlic and was also noticing a lot of catnip, and I was munching on a whole bunch of wild lettuce leaves. Made some in a salad for dinner. Felt weird that it's the middle of November and they're tender greens, but that's the next slide. Lee, if you will go to the next slide, we'll explain this very well.
I don't think I don't. Oh. Ha! Just kidding.
Here's a nice meme from our friend Sherry Ann at Blue Jay Botanicals that I feel sums up a lot of things right now. Maybe COVID related, maybe not. Probably maybe some pent up feelings you folks are having by not being able to gather outside, which sounds like the whole intention of your club. We just had our first. When we have a get together, we call it a frolic for Wild Foragers Society. So for the last 8 years, we've been having these free frolics outside. Anybody could come. You don't have to be a plant expert. You don't have to pay. And we had our first one this year, last weekend in Peterborough, because it was a sunny 17 degrees. And it finally felt like the right time to be able to know the best things for us to be prepared to be outside and safe with other people at a distance. But totally recognizing that the world is melting. Things are weird. Nature is trying to do its best in all of its glory. And it's sweet that you guys want to still talk about plants, because things are stressful, even in the non-plant world. Next, Lee. Here's a fancy picture of Lee. Lee and some peeps. This is usually what our scene is. This is us in the ravine at just outside of, if everyone knows in Toronto, the Don Valley Brickworks or the Evergreen Brickworks. If you've ever been to that spot or know about it, that's actually where we met and had started this from. And it came from a desire to be held a little bit more accountable to learning about plants and furthering is such a nice area. I miss that a little bit about the city, Linda. That we wanted to learn about plants and we wanted to be better at it. And we thought, what will keep us more accountable to learning about plants than inviting a whole bunch of strangers to meet us once a week or once a month in the middle of the ravines of Toronto? What could go wrong? And 8 years later, it sure did commit us to plants. Lee, do you want to say some other things about foragers?
I just wanted to just kind of say, like, you know, one thing that's really helping me, and this is a very 2020, weird life. And so one thing that I was really excited to be invited is just this idea that every walk can become more exciting when there are plants to meet and little tidbits for my mind to grasp onto. And I'm just kind of building on that because I used to also, back in the day, when I was a spring chicken, back in the day, I went to an outdoors club when I went to McGill, and like, there was so much beauty, like this amazing mountain, this incredible waterfall. And like, maybe that's not available for all of us right now. But there's really beautiful, like goldenrods and asters and like these little white flowers that like turn pink when they've been pollinated. And there's like so much brightness if we can like just engage with it. So I just wanted to kind of say that too, that I'm grateful to be sharing some of the plants that we like to eat. And because bringing plants inside and bringing them into our homes is like a thing that's really been a positive part of my life for me and Becky and Sammy, who's not here this evening, but a lot of the folks that we spend time with. It's just like a cool practice. Like, what can I learn? What can I make into rope? What can I eat in jelly? These kinds of things. So just wanted to kind of frame that around. Yeah, just like see what you can see on your walk. Thanks.
Yeah, and our jam, not jelly, our jam is actually like ways that people and plants can nourish each other equally, or having that reciprocity. So also not taking foraging from the lens of what can I or we go out and take and harvest from the land, but what is the relationship that I can build with those plants and mushrooms and trees in a way that I'm nourishing them because I recognize that they nourish me. And nourishment could sound fuzzy as a word, but to me, nourishment can be, you know, sitting in a willow tree and reading a book can be just as nourishing as picking crab apples and making jelly and literally putting them into your mouth. So if we had all afternoon and we were out and about together, we could totally dive deeper into talking about what is like land stewardship and the relationship building with land and what that looks like for different people in different contexts, different cultures, and different parcels of land in this country and this province that we live in. We're all treaty people on Indigenous sovereign land. So that's something that not only when you want to be aware of the rights and rules of land that you might be collecting food from or having a relationship with, you might want to know the cultural history. You should, might want to, should. The cultural history and context too about being a person on the land and your impact, not just towards those plants, but other people in modern context as well. Lee, jump in if you
Oh, I love what you're saying. I'm just
desire
gonna go for the sake of our timeline.
Do it.
Go over here because, yeah, I just wanted to, put a little bit of tips around foraging in general. So there's sort of some rights here. Becky was just talking about a different set of rights and responsibilities as people who have a lot of power when we interact with plants, like be doing that in a responsible way. Okay, so one part of foraging that a lot of people are very familiar with, oh, I gotta get the right plant. Okay, let's hope we're all on that level of like, I at least know I shouldn't eat every plant. Some of them are poison, because some of them are. But then there are other pieces like the right plant part. So depending on what types of resources you might be looking at, we always really recommend that people use cross-referencing of like 3 resources. You can use a person, like we're happy to be these people right now, tonight. If you have questions, or in the future, you can always email us or hit us up on the social media, because we love to look at what plants people are looking at. But even once you've identified that it's definitely the plant that you're interested in, it's important to know the right part. So for example, the way I would prepare a dandelion flower as compared to where I would prepare a dandelion leaf, those are different. Those are different parts of the same plant. And dandelion is edible, all of its parts. But it's important to also know the right time, because if I get the flower, for example, past prime, like, you know, before it goes to that cool, like you can make a wish, like before that, oh my gosh, it's already setting into that kind of gross, fluffy, seedy bits. No, this is not the correct time for dandelion flowers. If you want to have a lush, like beautiful fritter, or like sweet, like lemonade, you want the freshest flowers possible. So the right time. So tracking the plants. And yeah, just wanted to also say the right preparation is important. There's a great person named U.L. Gibbons who wrote a book called Stalking the Wild Asparagus, which is an awesome book. But a lot of it is like, just fry a bunch of stuff in margarine. Like, what? No, I don't want that. Like, even if it's a plant that I do want to eat, maybe that's not the experience that I'm looking for. So looking at the recipes and knowing yourself and knowing the types of things that you already eat, the things that you like, that's really important as well. So that's the right preparation that isn't quite on here, but just to kind of give a little bit of like, there's a few things going on, and that's why we like to start slow. And often some of the plants we're talking about tonight, you can make into a herbal tea, which is, you know, take some of the plants, cover with hot water, steep for 5 minutes. That's just a nice and simple method that can eliminate some of the confusion around these pieces. Yeah.
Totally. And so we have 5 plants that we're going to talk about tonight, introduce you to, or maybe reintroduce you to because you're a whiz and you know them already, and give you 3 suggestions of ways that you could use them or make something with them. Obviously, do lots of further research should you choose. And we always say, just like if you remember that public service announcement on like public television in the early 90s, don't put it in your mouth until you ask someone you love. You might have like a nightmare about this. It was like blue puppets, and they're like, kids, don't eat food that your mom and dad say is not good for you. Don't eat random things from the outside world if you don't know what it is. You wouldn't do that in someone else's house or in a grocery store. So just don't do that. And it's not because a dog might have peed on it. People are very concerned about dog pee with wild food. I kind of get it, but I kind of don't. Rain happens. You should wash things. There's probably dirtier stuff on the apples you get at the grocery store than like these leaves outside. To each their own. But as you start down a journey of maybe experimenting with foods you don't normally eat, you should also just get in touch with yourself a little bit, because your body might have a weird reaction, and you might at first think that you have eaten something deadly toxic and you freak out and you think you want to go to the hospital, but you might just be putting a new food into your body and your body's just not used to it. So it takes small doses, trial and error, get to know your constitution. None of these things we're telling you about should cause you to have anything come up or out in either ways that should not normally happen. So keep us posted on your experiments of these next 5 plants. They are arranged in an order where we don't tell you what they are first because we like that tricky mentoring style of things that frustrates adults, where you say, "What is that?" and you don't tell them the answer. So you're invited to look at this picture, and I can see some faces, but does anyone? I can see almost all the faces. Does anyone, by show of like a hand or a thumbs up, know this plant? Is this your friend? You know this plant by a name, by an experience? Scrolling. Ooh, potentially, Brian. 1, 2, Madeline, Noah. Lee has the controls to tell you the answer, so I don't know how much she wants to make you squirm.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'll just like just wait more. No, sorry.
Huzzah. Is anyone going, plantain is like a banana, you fools? This is not plantain. Maybe. No, has anyone seen this in their front lawn, in your neighbor's lawn, in a park, maybe in a childhood memory where you were sitting playing soccer, but you weren't really playing, you were just ripping things out of the grass and those long sticks were in there?
I remember pulling like the fuzzy bits off like the stems. Yeah.
Yeah, they have a funny little flower on the top that puts out the little tiny white flowers. Has anyone put this plant in their mouth? No, head shakes. No. Did anyone put it on their body though? Oh, has anyone had a friend's dad use it on a bee sting? Brian?
Yes.
Totally. Is everyone familiar with, just before Lee goes to the next slide, there's 3 words on this slide. So plantain, rocking the common name, which can be helpful because it's most often used. And then most often with a little asterisk that says, depending on your language and your culture, because when I say plantain, Lee might think that banana-esque item and not think that we're talking about the same thing. Or I could call it white man's foot, which is another common English name for it that you might say, or the faces I just saw go, huh, you might not know I'm talking about the same thing. So we often refer to the botanical Latin, which would be Plantago major. There's also Plantago lanceolata, the narrow-leafed plantain. But that genus and species name helps us know specifically what we are talking about so that when you're out and about, you know we're talking about this kind of plantain, not plantain chips that you get when you take out Caribbean. Also delicious.
So good. Cool. Yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit about some uses. So plantain is still happening right now. Speaking of things that are happening in November, you can see on the left of this photo, there's somebody using it as a poultice. So, you know, a weird word, which is basically crush it up and put it on your skin, which it sounds like some people have a little bit of experience with. It's really helpful. I work outside and, you know, outdoors clubs, when you go outside, you might experience like stinging red ants, stinging nettle, just even scrapes from like brambles, a little bit of sunburn. I'm a very prone to a sunburn human. That's me. And these types of skin irritations can be really helped with the soothing plantain. This is all you do. You just pick it from the ground. First, you have to know what it is, but then you pick it from the ground, you chew it in your mouth, and then you take it out of your mouth and you put it on your skin. It's called a spit poultice. Simple. And as a person who works with kids, it's fantastic because it's already like, ooh, like I have a way to solve my problem. Here's a thing I recognize that's different from all the other infinite green things. There's like a lot there. And it's an edible plant, which is super important. Otherwise, I couldn't tell people to put it in their mouth. That'd be ridiculous. And so there's like I think this is a picture of it in oil. So like in where you would make an infused oil, where you'd make a salve. So that's something that's a nice little like crafty thing to be doing indoors. You make salve, or I make salve. I make my salve indoors. I don't have a sweet outdoor kitchen. But so making infused oil, putting it with some beeswax. My partner and I give it to people as gifts. We're like, here you go. They're like, what is this? We're like, whatever, put it on your feet, like whatever. It helped somebody's bunions. That was a cool story. But just wanted to say that the leaves are delicious in a similar preparation, which is the third image here, as a kale chip. So they are a bit tough, especially at this point in the year, but they're really awesome when you dehydrate them, or like low temperature, kind of cook them the way that you might any other type of kale chip. Put some salt and oil, delight. That's the kind of chip I like, but you know, do as you like. And the other thing that's really cool right now is the plantain flower stalks have now turned to seed. And so they're all turning brown. That's a really good color for seeds to be. Brown is a mature color for many, many seeds. And that you can, like, first of all, have fun with. It's so tactile and interesting to like spread all the little seeds, but then you can also collect a bunch of the seeds. And some people I know, they're just like, yeah, and then I just put a little bit on my granola, or I put a little bit with my yogurt. And there's just like this kind of nice, for me, it's like a nice feeling of like, what are things I'm already doing and how can I incorporate things into my life that make my life fuller and richer? And this plant is so abundant, you could harvest it probably forever and not make any dent on the population. We'll talk about more of that later, but just wanted to acknowledge that that's something that's also part of this, is like, oh yeah, like what can I do? And then, oh yeah, a lot of places people weed these plants out of their garden, which is like, oh, just give that to me. It's delicious and medicine, and thank you. Yep.
And I might just unpack the word salve in case that's a strange word for some people. SALV, salve. That's the act of combining an oil with wax. So beeswax is often shout out to, I think it was Noah saying that they're studying bees. I'm a beekeeper, so I have my own wax, which means I make a ton of salve. And it's really simple. Like really, you're like, plants, I want the goodness of the plant inside the oil. So I'm gonna infuse dried plant material. No one needs botulism. And then I'm going to take that infused oil and then add various ratios of beeswax to make it either really firm, like waxy puck, or something that melts when you put it on your lips, like lip balm. That's an important ratio to remember, so you don't do what some of us have done, which is make something that when you put it in your pocket in its nice little tin and it's a 30-degree weather day, that it melts in your entire pocket and it looks like you have wet yourself and you can't get it out. Heads up with the salve. The other thing about plantain I just wanted to mention, because I have a little reference of all our other plants here, but I could not find any plantain outside. I creeped around my neighbors' yards in the dark and could not spy any, but here is a photo of it in one of my favorite field guides. It's a Peterson's. I'm sure you folks have some cool field guides out and about. As Lee was saying, this is one of the kind of 3 ways we recommend people get a reference. Books, humans, internet, less so. Be really wary of that. But a field guide like this is really great. Even better if you can get one with colors or relevant images. Next slide, Lee.
Hey, this is a sweet one.
I think your screen share stopped happening.
Did it stop happening for everyone? No.
Is it supposed to be leaves with little white flowers?
Yes. Very good.
It's just me then. It's just me.
Sorry, Becky.
That's okay. I have it on this other screen, so.
Okay, cool. This is really sweet. Yeah, this is absolutely it. These are leaves with little white flowers. This is a very hot topic plant. Nobody said that they were studying ecological restoration or anything like that, but this is a hot topic. Is anybody familiar with this plant? Have seen this plant growing?
Maybe.
A little, yes. Yeah.
think.
Okay, cool. I have the quickest story. I'm so sorry. I'm definitely going to tell it though. Which is just that, so this plant is very beautiful, I find. And there are places where you can go into forests, and on the understory, it will just be a carpet of this plant. And somebody told me about how, it's the pandemic. Somebody went on a walk with their friend and they were so excited. And their friend was just like, they went on a walk and they went into nature. And their friend was like, oh, this is so beautiful. And the friend who has, ecological restoration kind of brain was just like, oh my God, but it's such an aggressive, invasive, da, da, da. But she didn't say anything. And I was like, thank you. Because it's such an interesting part of reality that depending how we perceive things, we have completely different experiences. And so this is an awesome plant to get to know because it's abundant. It's everywhere. And I bet you it's near you guys somewhere. You could probably go on a walk for like 10 minutes and find this plant somewhere in somebody's garden, in a backyard, in a forested trail where humans visit, a parking lot, something. But I just wanted to kind of put that in everybody's minds too, of like, wow, this is an amazing food plant. And that's not the story that's always being told about it. Because for sure, it's aggressive and might take over habitat from other plants. That's definitely possible. Cool.
Any guesses on who this beautiful but aggressive plant is?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
It's garlic mustard. Oh, wait,
What?
Becky, I was like, you can't see it.
I can
Have
see
folks-
it. I switched back, but I
Okay,
like
good.
Jesse's just
Sorry,
exclamation
that's
of
an invasive
what?
species? I didn't know.
There's a lot to unpack in that. But yeah, people do treat it as an invasive where I am. So probably where you are too. You're not that far away.
Invasive.
I'm sorry. I really wanted to hear that.
It's the #1 understory forest invasive plant.
Thank you. Totally. And it's
Yeah,
a
so if-
delicious food. Sorry, go ahead, Becky.
No, I was just gonna say, so if you have feels about this plant, if you want to anthropomorphize it and feel like it's kind of a jerk, the best way to get back at it is eating it. Like if you're gonna take it out already, you literally can eat it. Same as dandelion, in that you can eat all parts of this plant depending on the right time. So here's one that I pulled just now from my local park. And it's so shady, not actually shady. It's so crafty in its aggressive growing ways that this is what it would have looked like in the spring as well. So this plant has already gone through like a cycle of growing and seeding and whatever. And it's like, oh, it's still warm out. I'll just do this all over again. Doesn't matter because I can take up whatever space I want. Anthropomorphizing again. But this is a great time. So collecting the leaves is really nice right now. If Lee, you want to sneak over to the next one. Yeah, I put the picture of the leaves up just because you literally can just eat it. And they are, as you might guess by the name, kind of garlicky, kind of mustardy, and it can be very bitter. And bitter is not necessarily a flavor that's in everybody's palate or everybody's preferred palate outside of like coffee and chocolate, which are both bitters that are usually full of like sugar and fat with them. So it's not really too bitter. But bitter foods in Western culture, anyway, I'll generalize and say, are not super common. So this plant, the first time you eat it, some people are like, gross. This is gross. This is not tasty at all, which is fair. Again, give it time, give your body a chance to acclimatize. But that bitter does a really important message to your body, and it actually stimulates like your gallbladder to like start producing the bile and get your digestive juices and system ready to eat. So it's kind of like if you've ever had a little bitter drink before dinner or after dinner, a digestif. It's giving that same bitter action that's helping to like give your body a heads up. We're about to digest shit and we need to be ready and like, you know, be able to absorb nutrients. So I like to put a little bit and just snack on it every now and then. It's like a little bitter leaf. But I also obviously enjoy salty, fatty things. So the middle picture is a nice jar of pesto. That is definitely the most friendly way that we recommend people incorporate garlic mustard into their lives. Blend it with cheese and nuts if you eat nuts. You don't even need to put basil in. You can if you want. Delicious. Eat it on pasta. Impress your friends. Or if you want to go hardcore, the third picture that looks like mashed potatoes a little bit, I apologize for that poor resolution, is really a whole bunch of blended root. And so they have these kind of obviously tiny, kind of wiry, sometimes that are like all over the place, roots that are white. And if you think the top part is bitter, the bottom part is way more hot. And it's actually very reminiscent or can be set in place of horseradish. If you are a person who eats horseradish, it does that thing where like you burns in your nose a little bit in a good way. So if you want to impress your friends at your next roast beef dinner that no one's having because of COVID, using the root of garlic mustard can be a sweet substitute there. And I don't eat meat, so I never use it that way, but I do incorporate it into my fire cider, which was a little infusion that we made at the last frolic that all you folks can check out and do at home. Fire cider, check it out.
Awesome. I just wanted to say also on behalf of like, I was a vegetarian for a long time and I didn't know about this like beef and horseradish connection because I just didn't eat beef. So I just eat it with cheese. I'm going to say horseradish and cheese and a cracker. That's a good situation. You could get involved. And if you're vegan, you know, let me know. What should I be involved in? It's good. Cool. Ooh. This is a good plant. Do you want to talk about this plant, Becky, and then I could talk about the uses?
Yeah. I have a way more sad looking version of this plant that I just went and picked outside. But the thing about the one I'm holding that would be different than the one that's there is which one do you think will taste better? Would taste better? That pristine picture? Or yeah, the one I'm holding that looks real sad is way better. Why are these fruits way better once it's cold?
After a frost, the chemicals break down.
They break down and the sugars concentrate. Again, bitter, not necessarily something we innately like. Sweet, delicious fruits. Yes, please. Have other folks eaten this fruit? Oh my God, the jelly train. Brian. Amazing.
We have a community garden at McMaster that grows wild grapes. You can just like go take them. Yeah.
And do you find that when you go to take them, that they're there, or the other more than human kin of ours, squirrels, etc., have found them first?
It kind of depends. The garden's like fenced in, so I don't know like how many animals actually get in there. But so I also, because it's a community garden for the entire university, I don't know how much of it is animals and how much of it is other hungry students.
Oh, that's a really good point. We often feel that we're misleading people. We're like, go and check out this amazing, especially if it's a fruit, like a sweet fruit. We're like, go find it. And people are like, I can't ever find it. And it's like, yeah, because humans are not as good at the game of knowing when a crucial food source is perfectly ripe. Birds, squirrels, Lee tries really hard to beat squirrels at getting certain like nuts from trees and stuff. She still can't do it.
So true. This is so true.
So true.
It's like me versus squirrel in like every foraging.
Yeah, no. And just as a side note about that, if you ever see an abundance of something that you think is a delicious wild food and no one has touched it, it's just there, plentiful, that should be one of those like triggers in your lizard brain to be like, oh, maybe this is if no one else wanted to eat this, maybe it's not for me. But these can be for you. Lee, you want to click the name? The wild grapes. They're out there.
They're so awesome. What? Okay. I'm not going to go down a huge rabbit hole. I'm just going to stick on this, but grapes are awesome. Please look up Vinland. The people who came to Newfoundland, obviously people were already living here for sure, but like, you know, the Vikings, that's it, the Vikings, and then Vinland and the microclimate. And oh, there's something so cool about that. You can just eat grapes. That's a simple way to enjoy them. Just have a few. They have seeds. Fruits are intended to have seeds for the plant purposes, and humans have gotten involved. Bye, Jesse. They're really, really interesting and beautiful. It's important to know this plant because there's other plants like Virginia creeper. That's really important to know the differences between. So that'll help when you look in a field guide, especially some good reputable ones. They have like commonly mistaken for or those types of things. Grape jelly or grape juice, cooked grape juice. So you take a bunch of those and you kind of like simmer them lowly on low heat with some water, and then you strain through a cheesecloth, and then you can add like sugar to taste or maple syrup or honey or whatever your sweetener, or like you're like, nah, I live the sour life. Okay, good, fantastic. Don't add sugar then. But it's pretty delightful. And there's lots of different ways to incorporate the pigment that you can find within grape. Has anybody ever done any pigments or natural dyes or anything like that? You can like say yes, or you can type in the chat.
I've done coffee.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Did you dye something with coffee or just?
Yeah, I do cross stitching and I dyed fabric with it.
That's awesome. That's so sweet. Yeah, well, so anytime you get into the world of natural dyes, it's which probably is true for non-natural dyes, but definitely my experience with natural dyes, you need to make sure that you have the right binding agent. So like a salt or a metal, which is just like another thing you would add to the solution to make sure that the cotton or wool or silk is going to bind to it so that it doesn't wash out. But if you don't care about that kind of stuff, maybe you just have some paper and you're like, I'm making something beautiful. I'm never going to wash this paper card. Great. That's so much easier. Then all you're looking for is color of any sort. And that's a really fun thing to do with all types of things, grape just being one that we wanted to highlight because it's like an amazing, there's a whole story also about royal purple, which I won't go down, but it's a very rare color to be able to extract from the natural environment. And so it was like very prestigious for hundreds of years because people couldn't access purple clothes. Kind of funny. Cool.
And if anybody is like a rogue home brew kind of person doing your own beer, wine, whatever, obviously you could use wild grapes to ferment and make some kind of home wine situation. My partner did that last year and he knows how to brew beer, and the wine was terrible. We fed it to someone who said it tasted like vodka mixed with Welch's grape juice that had gone sour. However, just like Lee was saying, instead of drinking it, I literally just use it as like a paint now. I'm going to paint it on some Christmas cards or holiday cards and send it to people in the mail and be like, this was made with grape juice. They will be impressed. No waste. Find grapes near you. Who's this? Who's this plumper? Maybe if there was someone in your life you cared about as a child, you threw one of these at them. Oh, Madeline, she knows. This version of it has the husk on. I have one that has been made naked. if that helps anyone. Lee, show us the name.
Hey, yo. Black walnut.
Black walnut.
Just wanted to do a little shout out to this because I'm always learning, and I appreciate, some people might know its cousin, butternut. It's an endangered tree. There's lots of interesting stories of folks I know having to rezone or redo their construction sites because it's an endangered species. You can't just cut butternuts down. And then you have to be like, this is really a butternut and not a walnut. Anyway, lots of drama. But butternut is also known as white walnut, which I just think helps me make sense of why is this a black walnut, because it's not black in any way.
Yeah, so black walnut sometimes gets a bad rap. If you ever had someone who's had one and tried to garden near them, it can be labeled as like similar to the garlic mustard as like a problematic plant. You know, has nefarious thoughts about ruining people's tulip beds. Not really, it just wants to live, but it does have a chemical compound called it's juglones, which is an adaptive strategy to put into the soil through roots, through fruits, through leaves that fall down on the ground to help make the soil more likely to be hospitable for its own young to grow and remove the competition of other plants. So it's actually a pretty smart strategy, but it upsets people sometimes, or they don't like having messy walnuts on their driveway. However, they are delicious. They're so good. You have to commit some time and energy to getting to the walnut meat, like you can see on the far left here. That time and energy can include collecting, tapping into your inner squirrel and collecting walnuts. I'm sure you can find someone who does not want their walnuts. That's very often. I found that our local landfill actually has a green waste section, and there was just like a 10-foot pile of walnuts there that people picked up, drove to the landfill, and put them there. This is not the life I'm living, but somewhere there are walnuts near you. You want to remove that green husk that's on the outside. That will stain your hands. You will look like a weirdo with brown hands, or just yellow nails, or some kind of, you've been doing something with your hands and it won't come off for a period of time. So please don't go wearing your nice white blouse and process walnuts and be like, Becky and Lee said I should do this, and now I've ruined all my favorite things. Please don't do that. You need to remove that husk. It's a little bit messy. Gloves are important. You need to clean any of the husk off so that you just have the shell, and then you need to let the shell cure. If you open it up right away, it's just going to be some weird, wet, sad stuff inside, not like nut meat, like you know it to open a walnut. So once these guys are cured, they're dry, then you start the process of trying to smash your way into a black walnut. This is not going to open with your like holiday nutcracker, any of those things. The way I have done it that's successful, 2 ways. One is in a vise, like in a workshop, and you put goggles on because you literally don't want to get walnut spray in your face. It's very serious. Or this kind of strange, put them in a pillowcase, put them in a bucket in the pillowcase, and then take a really heavy thing and smash them like a log. And even that doesn't work sometimes. It's a real commitment to get into the walnut. And then all those tiny pieces of meat, you also need a lot of patience. I'm really selling it. I think that you guys should do this, but it's so worth it. And maybe you'll have a precious friend like we do in Sammy who will harvest a bunch and give it to you, and then make a label with black walnut ink, which is the picture on the far right. So kind of similar to the process with the grapes, is being able to use the husk to create ink or like a paint type substance. Anyone know any black walnut liquids that you would drink? That one in the middle? This would be more like that aperitif or digestif category. It's called nocino. So you're actually taking the kind of immature walnuts and letting them sit, letting them ferment a little bit, Yeah, Nocino. It's not my favorite taste experience, but some people really, really like it. And again, makes a very fancy gift to people you think would appreciate something that you wildcrafted.
Yeah, this is awesome, and just wanted to just acknowledge the ink portion, which Becky did, but like this is so fun and doesn't need a natural mordant. So like the other natural dyes, it actually has a mordant within it. So it will bind to things. That's why your hands will be stained. You actually don't remove the stain ever. It's just your skin cells regenerate.
Yeah.
That's how long it takes. But you can have some really beautiful things. And it's been one of my most successful natural dyes is just cotton t-shirts, tie-dyed with black walnut. They look awesome, I think. And so do 8-year-olds. Here it is. Another plant mystery. It's a little bit pixelated, but it's very fuzzy and really cute. And Ontario's provincial tree. That's a hot tip for someone. Any guesses or like statements of fact, like you know it?
Yeah, Belvina has a guess. She's guessing pine.
Cool.
Ooh, look, yeah, you guys know this.
Nice. It is these things, the pine or white pine, eastern white pine. I just wanted to say something really fun about this plant, and then I'll pass it over to myself. No, never mind. So that's good because it's so cute. I've already told you many times I work with kids, but I'll be like, kids, what do you think this feels like? And they're like, spiky. And I'm like, I can know for a fact you haven't touched it. Because with your eyes, it looks spiky. And then you touch this one and it's so fluffy and nice. So fluffy and nice. So exactly, somebody's already prompting, good in tea. Yes, conifer teas, we have a long winter ahead of us. I mean, that's always part of our climate, but it's even gonna feel potentially harder for, I think, all of us, that we have more and more social isolation. But having that sort of comforting herbal teas, conifers are around all year, and you can always go on a walk with the purpose of like, oh, hey, I'm going to harvest a little bit and come back and make myself a nice hot cup of tea. And the only one to watch out for, which I'll type in the chat too, is YEW. This one is not good. Learn that one, please. But any of our pines, which are multiple needles in a bundle, which folks might have seen or been taught about white pine, that there's 5 needles in a bundle, there's 5 letters in the word white. It's sort of a helpful tool, but it's amazing tea. My favorite way to have it is 1 handful or like covered palmful of fresh needles. I chop them up just to get some more surface area and allow more flavor. I've definitely made lots of hot water before when I thought I've been making herbal tea. And then I like to add just a little bit of honey. I'm a preference to a sweet thing, but it's also really nice in a tea blend. So you could add it to one of your already existing favorite tea blends. And this is a really nice one for the cookies here. Making something like a white pine salt or a white pine sugar. Obviously for cookies, I'm going to recommend that you're going to make a white pine sugar. But again, you're doing the same thing, which I mentioned, is pulling the actual fresh needles off the plant, chopping them finely, maybe a bit more finely for this, and then curing it with salt or sugar. Both of those things are drying and curing sort of agents. You can make a little blend. It infuses the aromatics into it. It's so nice. And it's like a way that you can involve cooking and baking, but not have to worry about the shelf life of the product, because then you're going to have something that's stable. If it ever becomes wet, if there's ever liquid in your sugar or salt, something's gone wrong. Put it in the fridge and investigate further. But you should be able to just dry it on a baking sheet. Or in this case, also with the cookies, you can like chop them up and put them in the dough. And sometimes it's really good and sometimes you can't taste it. So it's like worth doing more than once before you like send it in a package to someone and you're like, try this. And like, that tastes like regular. But it's an awesome one. And oh yeah. Ooh, la la. Has anybody ever used pine sap or pitch for anything? This is a very useful substance. No.
Maybe you climbed a tree once and it got in your clothes and it never came out again.
I was gonna say, maybe you had a
This outdoors club must have this experience.
yeah.
What's a pine rocket?
Oh yeah, when you put it on the water.
Yeah, you like put the stick in the sap and then you like have kids race their pine rockets in the water.
Yes. The first time I saw that, I was an adult. I don't know what happened in my childhood. Anyway, didn't know about that. And I was like, what? I was losing my mind. Everybody should do this. It's really cool because oil and sap are hydrophobic. So it's a little accelerant. Yeah, glue or fire starter. Awesome. Those are yes. And this is a straight up, like, honestly, like outdoors club. If you ever want to do like a plants for survival, that's a different part of my work, but it's so awesome. Like pitch, which is often a way that people refer to sap of conifers. And then you can even mix it in a blend with ashes. And it is also, if you've ever seen some of those birch bark canoes or beautiful like cedar strip canoes that have been handmade, it's a glue that hardens. And I was in a workshop once, and if you've ever had Birkenstocks and how they separate those silly little leather parts and the cork parts, somebody glued their Birkenstock together. I was like, that was incredibly practical. And it worked for years. Never gave her trouble again. So yeah, just want to like shout the praises of white pine. It's an awesome plant and there's a boon of ways to use it. Yeah. Cool. Woo! I don't know what this slide does for us. Do you, Becky?
It tells you should go out and find some of these plants that we're talking about. This is the friendly reminder to make sure you know what they are before you use them. So check your resources, make sure that you're obtaining them from a place that is appropriate and safe and makes sense. And to play the game that Linda's saying too, is like, which leaves are these? That's a great question. This is one of our pictures, but I only know the leaves in the middle, which are actually scales on, Brian has it, cedar scales. So beautiful.
Yeah, and I would guess that those other ones look like a type of anise hyssop or something. So we probably were near a garden. Yeah, cedar also very good in tea. Somebody once told me it tastes like drinking the forest, and I was like, oh, I love that. I say it to everyone.
Lee, do you want to click again, and then the word should come up, I think, for this one.
Oh, thanks. Oh, thank you.
Da-da-da.
Super important to know the land and the history of the land. At the very minimum, much of Southern Ontario has been settled in like the recent past, and there's often old railways make awesome hiking trails. Cool, except if you're harvesting or foraging near those places, heavy metal contaminants and other things are very hazardous. And like we've just briefly mentioned, invasive species definitely like are being controlled in many ways, which is awesome potentially, but potentially also very harmful because sometimes people are using glyphosates or other serious chemicals. So you can end up having those as a serious issue. I think we lost Becky. Becky fell away from me. Did she fall away from you guys? Yeah, okay. That's okay. I know what I'm saying, but I miss her. She's awesome. It's important to know, yeah, your legal responsibilities. Obviously, whether or not you choose to follow them, that's like between you and the law. But if you know them, then you can at least understand the intent, is the one thing that I really appreciate about it. And lots of places, people are making into habitats, or the city is like, oh, not everyone could forage, wild leeks and then they wouldn't exist. So there's lots of good reasons. And that's why we've picked some of the plants that we're recommending right here. It's because they're really abundant, most of these plants. And it's often easy to get access, whether or not you have a backyard, it's often easy to get access to somebody else's just by networking, like in the outdoors club, like who needs to do a bit of weeding or yard work? Like, I'll come help you. Can I get some edibles? So pretty sweet. Oh yeah. And it's really, we always stress this. We're not, there's no like waiver. There's no like magic, like qualification that you have now that you've seen these pictures that now you know how to ID them. No, sorry. Even more so than when we normally are in the field together. It's really important that you know what you're looking at. And yeah, plants can kill. Some of the deadliest poisonous plants in the world actually live in our habitat. Poison hemlock, water hemlock, cow parsnip, wild parsnip. Some of them are edible too, like know your part. Like honestly, you can get an incredible burn and blisters, or you can have a delicious roast soup. That's what wild parsnip has for you, kind of. So important to know what you're working with and what you're looking at. And start slowly. That's why we like just like a small piece or a small thing, or, you know, start with a friend who already has experience with that plant and then grow from there. This is us. We just wanted to say you can follow us on the social media or not, like don't, if you don't want to, I don't mind, but just in case you wanted to continue making connections. Oh, hey, Becky. Yeah, if you wanted to continue making connections, we've been going on for 8 years and we're in various parts of Southern Ontario, and we always love a good reason to come on a road trip or those types of things. Obviously, we're a bit quieter these days of 2020, but we're looking forward to the future because we'll still be around. So yeah, check us out. Send us your plant ID questions, all that kind of jazz. We love that stuff. Yeah. And then I think, is this our closing question, Becky?
It sure is. Sorry, my internet had a little blip there, but.
Do it up. But for sake of time, I think we want to wrap it.
Yeah, this is just our invitation to remind you that plants are amazing. Plants are out there. Even if you can't be together, you can always go and be with plants. But what are you doing also to nourish your relationship with plants? So this can literally be as simple. At our frolic last week, we picked up garbage while we went on our walk. It's not sexy, but it's definitely a small thing that you can do to help support the beautiful world that we live in, even if it feels like it's on fire right now. So please go out there, meet plants. Let us know if you have any plant mysteries or you want to be in touch. Thank you so much for inviting us to hang out with you folks. And hopefully we can be together in the real world outside one day.
Thank you.
Do you guys have any questions? Otherwise, it's Belvina is the star of the show.
Yeah.
I'll just want to say thank you so much for doing this presentation. I learned a lot. I hope everyone else did as well. And this is overall, just thank you so much for coming. I had a question though. I was wondering if you have any good resources, like books, apps, websites that you recommend for like knowing how to ID.
Yeah, I have 2 that I'll mention and then I'll pass it to Lee. One of them that I do use on my smartphone is the iNaturalist app, or it's like iSeek or iNaturalist. I don't rely on that solely, but I do find it is a pretty deep database of images. And so I find that one really handy to take a picture and then look up later. And I would also just say for text resources, there's field guides like the Petersons that I showed, but I really value, and I know Sammy and Lee do too, people who have written books that have had the plant experiences themselves. So this one I'm holding that you probably can't see is by a gentleman named Samuel Thayer. So he's only talking about in his text plants that he himself has prepared and ingested. Instead of what often happens, folks who have the job of writing a book but are not necessarily the expert or the person who has experienced something, and they just carry forward other written text. And so that's how, if you guys ever get the nerdy rush of when you find like a mistake in a book, mistakes get carried forward a lot of the time in kind of general guides or resources, or things that say, like Lee said, like cow parsnip, inedible, toxic, and then the education kind of stops there. So that's one of those other reasons that it's good to ask other humans or use resources that are people have had the experiences with the plants. Lee?
Oh yeah, I just put in there also one of my favorites for ID in general is Newcomb's Wildflower Guide. There may be lots of things like trees, etc., that you want to ID that aren't in the Wildflowers Guide, but the thing I would point to is that they've done a really beautiful way of a dichotomous key. And for some folks that, like me, I'm that type of person, it's just really helpful. You go through step by step and you're like, or is it like this? Is it like that? Is it like this? Is it like that? And you can find a way to start to look and notice differences. And that's been one of the biggest learnings for me is just like, what can I notice and how am I like retaining that information? So using a guide, but any guide, truthfully, Peterson's guides are really good. The Lone Pine guides often have some good content. They don't always help you identify, but that's the one barrier I would say around internet resources is that at least field guides, although they have challenges for sure, they've had an editor and somebody who looked through and like double checked and proofread, cross-reference, that kind of thing. And so there's a person who runs like the 3 Foragers online or like, yeah, a few other ones. You just want to make sure that they're referencing and like giving links to other websites that confirm, and it's not just like everybody's personal blog. Like, ugh, I've seen misinformation on the internet too. Yeah. Thanks.
Does anyone have any other questions?
Yeah, I kind of do. So I was sort of catching the drift. Did you guys both start the Forager Society, just the two of you, and then it sort of grew from there? Or like, what's like the backstory, I guess, of like the Forager Society?
Yeah, that's sweet. I'll just say, yeah, Rebecca and I started it, what, 2013? Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2013. So we talked about it before we started it, obviously. Yeah, and so the two of us co-founded it and we did monthly frolics for many years. And Sammy Tangier has always been an active participant. She used to be our photographer, our unofficial photographer, and now she actually has a title called the Vice President of Awesome. And so the three of us kind of hold it down, and yeah, we work together to, now that we are in geographically different areas. I'm in Toronto, Sammy's in Peterborough, and Rebecca's in Picton. So we work together to make sure that we can kind of run things a little bit independently when we want, but also together is the best thing, because this is an initiative that's about people, connecting people and their stories with plants and their stories. So it's important to work together, or for me, it's fun. That's what I mean by important. Do you want to?
We also say at every frolic that we're enthusiasts, we're not experts. So we're not there to be in this format. Unfortunately, you have to listen to us this whole time. Usually when we're out together, it's way more like, no, we want to have some reciprocity here, because even if you feel you can't bust out the botanical Latin on something offhand, there's a good chance you've had an experience with a plant, either through a story or through a food or through a bouquet on your table. And all of those are valid. Those are all valid ways of knowing plants or having experience with them. And they're all precious in their own way. And what makes it amazing is people coming together and sharing those different perspectives on things so that we can slow down, reconnect with being outside and with each other. And it doesn't have to be scary or feeling like you have to memorize a book this thick to know what the hell you're doing outside just because you want to put like some extra green leaves in your salad. Or jelly. You guys seem like a jelly group. I don't know what your preferred wild food is, but if you start the McMaster Jelly Club, please invite us.
I was wondering, are there any plans to hold any more events in the near future?
Yeah, we Oh yeah, it's a good question. We're not sure about in person. We talked kind of like, now you guys know the secret. We talked kind of about running one in the winter, which I think we're gonna try and aim to do an in-person event. But the best way to stay sort of like in the loop is follow us on the social media or check out our newsletter. You can just sign up, and it'll only come to you when we're actually running something. It's not like we're gonna, I don't know, promote a product or something. Not what's happening. So just to say that it's kind of up in the air. We definitely did some online stuff a little bit in the spring, and then all of us had busy work over the summer, but it's really important to be in person for us. So we're gonna try and be creative about what that looks like. Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. I think I just want to say, like, because I appreciate people spending their evenings, but I also appreciate when things are timely. And I just want to say, like, it's past our time. Thank you for inviting us, Belvina, and everybody for giving us your nice attention. And yeah, feel free to reach out if things come up in the future you think that we could be involved in, or if you just want to come to one of our frolics, whatever those might be. It's always a pleasure to see people and plants. So thanks.
Definitely. Thank you so much. I also wanted to give back the thanks for spending your evening with us and teaching us so much, because it was a lot of fun. And I'm sure maybe in the future we can invite you back. I would love to have you guys back.
Yeah, just don't be strangers, because this world is a beautiful place, and it was really nice to sort of meet you. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, folks.
Okay, thanks so much for coming, everyone. Have a great rest of your evening. Bye.